Hi, I'm Edward Mullen, author of The Art of the Hustle and Destiny and Free Will, host of the Edward Mullen podcast, and the world-famous Plato's Academic blog. Okay, so today I wanted to make a video describing my writing process. If you go back to one of my very first videos, I mentioned that I always planned to do this, but I never really got around to doing it till today.
Okay, how to write a novel. As I see it, there are 5 basic steps on writing a novel: conception, planning, writing, editing, and marketing. The first thing you should do when planning on writing a novel is come up with a good idea. Once you have the idea, you want to explore it to determine the scope. In other words, you want to figure out all the plot points and see if you have enough material to write a full-length novel, which is usually around 70 to 90,000 words. To do this, you need to do a lot of planning. All writers have different styles. Some like to write out all their ideas on flashcards and then tape them all around the room. I don't do this. For me, I come up with a story and then usually wait a few months before I even write one word. In those preceding months, I'm immersing myself in the story and taking notes. Whether I'm walking, working out, or dreaming at night, I'm thinking about the story, the characters, and the conflicts. I write notes on my iPhone Notes app and email them to myself, or I speak into my Dragon Diction app, which transcribes my voice into text. Then I email the note to myself. I then compile all those notes into a master file on my computer. Part of the planning process is to think about what characters are going to be in your story. What I like to do is to create character profiles for all my main characters. I like to visualize what the character might look like, and then find an image online that resembles that mental image. I then think about who they are, what their hobbies are, their likes, dislikes, strengths, weaknesses, their voice, their education, their job, their motivations, family, friends, their location, and a few paragraphs on what an average day for this character would look like. You can add as much or as little detail as you want until you flesh out who this character is. Once I do that, I can get inside their head, figure out how they think, how they speak, how they interact with people, and what motivates them. If you're telling a story from a particular character's perspective, it only stands to reason that you know the character inside and out. Once I feel I have compiled enough notes, I create an outline. I have a file on my computer with a default outline that I use for each story. The outline is based on a 5-act story arc. There's also 3-act story arcs, which is often used. That is the setup, the conflict, and the resolution. I like to use the 5-act. I do this mainly to help me break down the story more. I just find it easier. Okay, so I have my outline template. From there, I use the notes and my imagination to start to roughly piece together the story. It is okay that you deviate from your outline. It's only used as a rough guide. There are many things that turn out to be unnecessary or that don't fit into the pace of the story, or sometimes a great idea will occur during the writing process and you decide to chase that whimsy instead. Using the template as a rough guideline, I then take a legal pad and draw squares on it. Each square represents some arbitrary grouping, perhaps a chapter or a series of events, or, it doesn't really matter. Inside each box will be a slightly more detailed breakdown of the next 10 chapters. This allows me to navigate the story and remain on course. It also acts as an agenda, so when I sit down to write, I know roughly what I need to do for that day. Once I've written everything in the boxes, I draw 10 more and continue the process until the story is done. Again, this is only a rough sketch of the story. It can always change if need be. An important point to consider is that I very rarely know the ending of my story. I have a rough idea, but the little elements and the complexities are discovered as I write. Some people may not do it this way, but this is the way I've always done it. I have a rough idea, but I don't spend a lot of time thinking about the intricacies of the story. I figure those out on the fly. Before I start writing, there's a few things that I like to do. First, I set up my page. I open up a new Word document, set the orientation to landscape, change the pages to 2 per page, and set the margins to narrow. I then insert page numbers at the bottom of the screen. Aside from proper spelling and grammar, I'm not too concerned about how the story sounds. My main goal is to get words on page. I usually aim for at least 1,000 words a day. There are obviously days where I don't do any writing, and other days where I write maybe 5,000 or 6,000 words a day, but as long as I try to knock out at least 1,000 words a day, it will guarantee that the story will get done. Of course, there are occasions when I stop writing for several days on end. In my latest novel, I stopped for several weeks, and I allowed for it. It wasn't so much of a writer's block, it was just that the story wasn't fully fleshed out, and there were certain pivotal moments where my choices would take the story in drastically different directions. So I wanted to take a step back, think about the story, and explore each angle like a chess player, thinking several moves in advance. So what I did was I talked to friends and figured out on my own what direction I should take, and just allowed the story to come to me. Once I felt I had a firm grip on the direction I wanted to take, I sat down and began again. Once my manuscript is done, I wait at least a month before I start editing it. I do 3 edits before anyone sees it. The first edit is on Word. The second edit is in print. And the third edit is using PDF. For more detail on this and my writing habits, watch my other video called Edward Mullen's Writing Tips. Once I finish editing the manuscript, I take it to several professional editors and begin to polish it. This process can take several months and even sometimes a year. Don't be discouraged by this and do not overlook this step. I know when you finish manuscript, you want to feel that it's done and you want to release it to the world, but this is a big mistake. People are not forgiving when it comes to reading a story with errors in it, and of course there will be. Nobody can catch everything, and even professionally published books will have a few errors in it. But try to get it as polished as possible and have as many different eyes view it as possible before it goes live to the rest of the world. Okay, so you've come up with a good idea, you've written your story, you've had it professionally edited. Now comes the hard part, marketing. This is such a big and important topic that I'll actually have to save it for another video. Essentially, you could write the greatest book in the world, but if nobody knows about it, what's the point? So marketing is so important.
I hope this video has helped you. If you want to follow me, you can go to my website, edwardmullen.com. You can view all my latest projects. Follow me on Twitter, @WriterMullen. And as always, thanks for watching.